Hello, everyone. My name is Laurie Smith, and this is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, the continuation. And I just recently started broadcasting again. I made the decision to go ahead and start up again. So I figured Friday night would probably work the best for this show. And then I'll do on Wednesdays at 12 noon, I'll still do the midweek Survivor check-in. And but I thought, well, we can cover some topics, and hopefully you'll find this information helpful for you as a survivor of abuse. Oh, here's my little kitty cat. She came to say hi. Oh, yeah, I missed her all day because I was working. So she's cranky now because I'm not going to be paying attention to her for a little bit here. So yeah, I'm glad to be back, and I appreciate everybody who's tuned into my stuff and checked my work out. I really appreciate it. I had no idea, like I said, how long I'd be broadcasting, and I just feel like, there's so many people out there struggling on their own and, feeling isolated and not, no one to talk to, no one who even can validate the fact that they were abused. So many survivors are on their own and nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to hear about it. And it seems like the world doesn't care. And there is a lot of people that really don't care, but there are a lot that do. And, I found out that truth by reaching out and finding a whole lot of people that really do care. And you just have to look around as a survivor of abuse. You have to look around for trustworthy people, who can, help you out in whatever capacity that you need, whether it's group support or just a good friend, somebody to talk to. And it's just so important. So I like doing these shows, and really just to be, like I said, just a voice of encouragement for people, to keep going and not to give up, and that there is help and resources out there, but you have to look for them. And sometimes they're not easy to get a hold of. So you do have to be diligent and really just keep at it, to get your needs met. Because as survivors of abuse of any type, we have the right to get help, and we have the right to get our needs met, just like everybody else, right? We have the right to have a good life. Coming from abuse, so many times abuse survivors, I know just in my own world of living, I never thought of myself as an abuse survivor. I was just, it was just my life, and I was just living it. And but a lot of people that I knew growing up and in my circle were also coming from abuse and dysfunction and, all sorts of trouble and traumas in their own homes. And so I never really considered myself to be an abuse survivor. I just, it was just the way I grew up. And it's really sad that so many people who were abused then don't feel that they should even get help, that there is any help out there for them, or that their lives really matter that much. And that's sad. That's really, really sad. And that's where I'm like drawing the line in the sand, man. I'm like, you do count. Your life is important. It does matter. And it needs to matter, first of all, to you. And, it doesn't, so if it doesn't matter to somebody else, who cares? You know what I mean? It needs to matter to you. And that's where I found that that's kind of where my strength lies, I think, in realizing that, hey, I mean, I shouldn't have to suffer as an adult, from what somebody did to me as a child. And I deserve to get help and feel better and, help to make better choices and help to get my needs met. And so I'm always kind of striving for that. And because I watched my siblings just not do that. Nobody in my family was willing to even talk about the issues. It was just so dysfunctional and so horrible that it's like everybody just split off because it's like, no, we're just gonna fight and we're just gonna be nasty. So there's no sense in even trying to do this family thing. So many times survivors of abuse really then feel like, they really don't have anybody to talk to. And I see this stuff because a lot of survivors of abuse follow my stuff and follow my stuff on Facebook. And, I'm friends with them at different social networking media platforms. And, I see that they're struggling. And so many times people just really feel like there's no one to help them. There's no one to even care that they're alive on the planet. And that's why I'm always like I do, you know, as a survivor of abuse, one survivor to another, one child abuse survivor to another. That's why I called this show that. I care. And so, but I realize that you need to care, right? And you need to care about yourself. You need to make good choices for yourself and get help, right? So important. So that's why I do these shows. And I figure, before I get to the point where I really just can't do the shows because I either don't have the internet anymore or, you know, I've gone on home, or something. I really just want to finish off what I'm doing. And I wasn't done. And I had a lot of biblical stuff that I wanted to do that I keep very separate from this. And I thought, I'm not really done. I have some more to say. And I think I just want to keep going until I finish it, and then I'll be done. It's at some point I'm sure I'll be finished, but not yet. Still have a lot to say, and I think it's really important right now with the issues that people are so isolated, and have just come through a couple of really bad years, some of the worst that we've ever seen, I think, in history since like the Great Depression sort of thing, and the Spanish flu, and millions of people died, and you know this is a horrible time for people right now, and I'm like, wow, I could just be another voice out here, just as usual, and continue to try to just help someone to at least feel like, wow, I'm not alone. There is somebody that understands how hard this is, and understands the day-to-day struggles that people go through, trying to get through after coming from abuse, right? So I do get it. I do understand it. I lived my whole life in that. And as a secondhand, also a child abuse survivor, but also a secondhand victim of domestic violence because my parents were always involved in domestic violence, assaulting each other, and it was just horrible. So I get it. I get it. You know, and I saw so much trauma and so much pain and so much sorrow and grief, and it was just like very much overwhelming. And that was my norm. So that's why I'm okay to do these shows. I'm okay to continue to do this stuff because it doesn't bother me because that was my norm. And I understand what it was like. I remember what it was like to be there. You know what I mean? It hasn't been all that many years since I was there myself. So it's like, it's all pretty fresh. And so I totally sympathize, empathize with anybody who's struggling through this stuff. I still have issues myself. Like I said, I'm not completely healed. I don't know, one day I might be. I'd like to think that it's possible and doable. I've talked to some survivor friends of mine who are good, dear friends of mine, and they feel like they've done it. They're done. Actually, quite a few of my survivor friends have gotten to that point where they're like, I'm done, I'm healed, and I'm happy for them. I'm like, hey, that gives me hope. That gives me hope because it's like, wow, okay, we can make it, right? It's doable. So that's why I keep doing these shows. And I used to do them on Blog Talk Radio, but Blog Talk Radio, I can't afford that. It costs money, and I used to pay for that show. But that was back in the days when I had money. I'm just a poor old lady now, man. Poor old survivor lady. Yeah, I really don't have a whole lot of money to work with right now, and I'm just really thankful to have this roof over my head. As I said before, it's just by the grace, really, of and the mercy of the people that own this suite. They're letting me stay here. I mean, I'm still paying rent, but they haven't sold it out from underneath of me, and I know that they could sell it anytime. I'm just thankful to have a roof over my head, absolutely, and some food, and and my cat. Like it's the little things that bring me happiness. So I'm fine. But the thing is I don't have as much money as I used to have to work with, because I used to work full time and I made decent money. So I mean, I had a car and I had things going better than I do now right now. Now my husband's passed away, and I'm broke, but it's okay. That's life, right? I grew up poor. I'm not expecting much, right, in that part. I'm not really looking for money. Yeah, that's right, Kitty. That's right. I'm busy here on doing a show. That's my cat. She missed me all day because I was working. So anyway, the issues is that I'm still working on stuff myself, and I'm so much further along than I was obviously when I first started. Um, I had a lot of work to do, and starting really in 2009, that's a long time ago. I mean, that's like 2009, that's 11, 12 years, really. 12 years of looking at the issues, delving into it, doing the work. Nobody saw me doing the work because I wasn't really doing the work around these shows. But after I would do these shows on Blog Talk Radio or whatever, um, especially during that time period, I would then go and do the work. So I would be journaling, writing, tearing up things, talking to my abusers, telling them everything I wanted to say. They weren't sitting here in the room. It's just that's that one, helpful thing that you can do as a survivor of abuse is write a letter to your abuser and tell them everything that you want to tell them. So many times abusers, thank God, I mean, they're not in our lives, right? Who wants an abuser in your life? They've either passed on or they're just not around. And maybe you just couldn't tell them because they might try to kill you or something. So many times survivors of abuse will write this stuff on a letter, which is actually quite common. That's what a lot of people will do. And I found it very helpful to write letters to my abusers and tell them everything that I wanted to say and read it out to them. And all that sort of stuff I was doing behind the scenes, right? Nobody was really watching me do that stuff. And also the self affirmation stuff. I mean, I had to do that on my own, and I had like I said, sticky notes all over the apartment, like everywhere. It was on my mirror. I had in the bathroom mirror when I get ready in the morning. I'd read these notes, and on the fridge and on the cupboards, wherever I was going to be, and I'd go through and I'd read them because I heard this was helpful, right? And it was very helpful to shut down the tapes that were playing around and around, which was my mother's voice mainly telling me, these horrible things she used to tell me, which really wounded me severely. And, it wasn't just the physical abuse. It was a whole lot of psychological abuse and emotional trauma, that I suffered as a child. And so, being made to feel worse than that I didn't even deserve to be alive. That's what I was told anyway. So, they start to believe it. Right? So, yeah, I don't deserve to be alive. So it was a lot of emotional, psychological damage as well as the physical abuse and the CSA child sexual abuse. It was just a lot of damage. And it took me a long time, like I said, the better part of 12 years. And I have pretty much, I'd say since 20, maybe 2016, 2017, I'd say since about that point, I really have just about made it through. I'm only just working on some last stuff that I wanted to kind of work through. And, maybe I'll always be working on some little thing because something will come up and show me that I'm not quite done. But I'm just I'm so glad to be on this end of it. And that's why I like to encourage survivors, um, because I was on the other side of that before, right? The side where I wasn't doing so good, and I really needed help. So that's why, I do these shows. So hopefully, you get something out of these. We'll just continue on every Friday night, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and whether I go a half an hour or an hour, I don't know. We'll see. It depends on the topic, I guess. Tonight, I actually did have a topic. These two books helped me out immensely. Healing the Shame That Binds You by John Bradshaw. If you don't have that and you haven't read it, it's very good. And also, because I didn't realize I had a problem with shame, but I really do. I really did, and I really still do. John Bradshaw also wrote another book that's very, very helpful, Homecoming, Reclaiming and Healing Your Inner Child. This one here. This is really good. They both are. And I've got paper clips in there. They're like little workbooks. You can do the little work stuff in there and actually fill out the questions, and very, very helpful. This one here, I just have stickies. Right? But healing the shame that binds you. That's what I kind of wanted to just sort of talk about the issues of toxic shame, because toxic shame is something that I didn't even realize that I had until I read his book. And then I'm like, wow, okay, I guess I do. It wasn't really like I took on the guilt from the abuse, but the abuse caused me a lot of shame. And so I had to really go through and work through that stuff. And he explains toxic shame as being this shame that, because there's shame that's not harmful, not toxic. Like there's shame that's actually called healthy shame, and that's where we, as human beings on the planet, have this healthy shame, which actually lets us know that we're not perfect and that, maybe we could do better, and that maybe, it kind of keeps us a little humble, right? So it's not a bad thing. We can learn that way because it's like if we never think we have anything to learn, we'll never learn. We'll never grow. And that's that healthy shame that tells us that, hey, I'm not perfect. I could do better, and I could do more. It helps us to grow, right, as a human being on the planet. But there's this horrible toxic shame that is just, as far as I'm concerned, it's deadly because we do it's our own internal shame. We're ashamed, like the shame actually becomes shame of ourselves, even though, somebody coming from abuse, somebody else did something to me, somebody hurt me. And then I take on this shame, this toxic shame, where I can't accept myself because of what somebody did to me. So basically, it's like you become your own worst enemy. You know what I mean? It's like that's where a lot of people are with, coming from, horrific abuse that just causes them to then feel, hey, they're not, I'm not worthy. I was talking a little bit about that on some of my last shows. This unworthiness, this sense of worthlessness, the sense of I'm a failure, like like John Bradshaw said. Just being at war with ourselves. And that is a horrible, horrible place to be. I know because I was there. And that's really basically, I think, where the trauma was hurting the most was the fact that I really had a lot of self-hatred. And that was all that toxic shame. And it just, took that, people would say, well, why did you have self-hatred? Somebody abused you, if somebody was talking to me and they could be like, well, you were abused, somebody abused you, why would you have self-hatred? You'd think you'd have hatred towards your abuser, not towards yourself, right? But a lot of times people will turn that on themselves and it becomes this self-loathing. And it's because your whole core piece of yourself that actually lets you know who you are, like your ego, who you are as a person is um, is in your mind ugly, worthless, and it's like we turn on ourselves. That's that whole self-sabotage thing, right? Self-sabotaging and not cutting and stuff because people do that for different reasons. There's a lot of reasons why people do, cutting and different things like that. But that's not the same thing. But what I'm talking about is this internal thing that says, I'm not, I'm not worthy. I'm not, I don't count. I don't matter. That's where I was. And that's why when I started doing my healing journey and started looking at the issues and doing this blog talk radio thing, I was like, man, you do count. You do matter. Because it was so important for me to hear that come out of my mouth. Because in the back of my mind, while I was saying it on the air to everybody else, whoever was listening, I was saying that to myself. I'm like, you do count. I do count. And I really had to start, acknowledging myself. I'm a person on the planet. I'm a human being. And just because I was abused as a child doesn't mean that I deserve to be abused further or that I should just not get my needs met because, hey, I don't matter. I don't count. I'm just a loser. I'm a worthless person. I was a worthless child. I'm a worthless adult. Right? And that's what I had convinced myself. I mean, I could work. I could hold a job. I had friends, people, I like to be around people. And I kind of like to laugh, as everybody can tell. And I really enjoy, kind of humor type stuff. I think I've got a pretty good sense of humor. And so, I laugh and stuff. But like I said, I'd come home at the end of the day be stuck with myself and want to attempt to commit suicide because I'm stuck with myself. See? And when I was stuck with myself at the end of the day and nobody else around, I was like, that's a point where I hated myself. I hated my body. I hated my who I was as a person. I hated what I had been through. And I mean, part of me, I guess, accepted myself a little bit to say, like, I can hold a job. I do make mistakes and stuff, at work and stuff. I'm not perfect, but I can hold a job, and I can be good to people and nice to people and all of that. So I knew that stuff about myself. People would say, "Oh, you're doing good," And I'd be like, "Well, and I mean, I went to cooking school and I did good, and I can do stuff." But the issue is at the end of the day, coming home, sitting down on the couch, I'm just alone with me. And all of those memories of what I suffered and my family suffered just, overwhelming me. That's where I was before I started my healing journey. And it was always just way too much. I mean, when I went to the Grand Canyon, I was 25 years old. I went to cooking school, and then I went to the Grand Canyon and cooked there for about, I don't know, 7 months or 8 months or something, almost a year. And I was, while I was there, I was very depressed, and because I was stuck with myself out in the middle of the Grand Canyon, just, people around, but nobody, I didn't know anybody. And I would just sit there, and I would just, at night, I'd get off pretty late at night, and I'd sit outside and just look at the stars with my coffee, and I'd sit there and I'd just cry. Nobody could see me crying. I was sitting out in the pitch black. There's no lights there because it's out in the Grand Canyon. I mean, it's just starlight. You're out in the middle of nowhere, right? And I would just sit there and I would cry, and the tears would come, and nobody would see me cry. I mean, I'm tough. I can take it. I can handle whatever's coming my way. But then, sitting there in the middle of the, night, just bawling because I can't do life. I don't understand how to do life. And that was me all the way through my 20s, all the way through my 30s, even though, like I said, I can hold jobs down and I can do these things that I need to do. I can pay bills, I can go to the store. But at the end of the day, I'm sitting there completely unable to feel any kind of, I guess, um, love, I guess, for myself, for life, right? That's where I was. I was just in the darkness. And so, when I started my healing journey, I was just determined. I'm like, no, that was all just horrible. And I'm a person, I deserve to get help. I deserve to have a good life. And, I need to learn how to love myself. That was probably one of the biggest and most helpful things that I could do for myself was to be compassionate to myself and actually just allow myself to go ahead and be like, okay, I matter. I do count. I did not deserve that abuse. And, it's so hard. These things are so incredibly hard on people, who have come through such horrible stuff. And then as adults, we're like, gee, I don't know what's the matter with me. And I just can't seem to. And it's like, well, because you just survived horrible trauma. And trauma, until you deal with it, it just stays, right? So, to get rid of that toxic shame, I really had to do a lot of work. And John Bradshaw's book, like I said, Healing Shame That Binds You, that was a huge resource. I read through that thing. I did all the right, all the journaling, everything that he suggested to do. I'd do after I'd do the shows. So I'd do the blog talk shows, and then I'd do the work. And I was just like, it took me, like I said, a long time to do it. But, I started to feel better because I'm like, wow, I sure did not deserve that. No child does. And, I need to be better to myself. I really need to make better choices, and I need to start caring about myself and start, enjoying this life and enjoying just being me, enjoying being around people, and just allow people to love me and allow people to get close, because the whole issue with a lot of times with survivors of abuse, not everybody, but I was one that, this kind of held people at bay. I mean, I'd let people in my life to a certain extent, but just close enough because once they got too close, that's it. They're too close. They got to go, or I have to go, one or the other, right? And so, it's like, no, I wanted relationships, and I wanted to be able for people to trust me, and I was like, and I wanted to be able to trust other people, and I'm like, well, I need to learn how to do this. I really do, and it's been a lot of work. I mean, a lot, and a lot of mistakes along the way, and not it just didn't happen overnight. Like I said, it took years and years to go through and comb through the baggage and the garbage that I had dragged along from childhood, from being abused and just growing up so dysfunctionally. I wasn't sure. I didn't have any good role models. My parents were not good role models, and they taught me how to behave. They taught me how to ruin my life and ruin other people's too. That's just what they did. So my siblings, I mean, they're all in the same boat too. So until we look at these issues as survivors of abuse of any type, right? Um, nothing changes, right? So that's why it was really important for me to realize I was like at the age of 41 and a half, sitting there, for the last time contemplating suicide. And I was like, how long am I going to keep doing this? I have to keep talking myself out of not killing myself. And I'm like, how long am I going to do this? And normal, regular people don't sit around doing this their whole lives. They really don't. I need help, and I need to get help, and I need to start reaching out. And so I did. And I'm thankful. I am very thankful because that was, quite a few years ago now, and 41. So that was 2007 when I made that decision. So it's been about 14 years. So I'm still here, and I'm so thankful, because I'm no longer, terrorized and tortured by my past, even though I still remember it. It's there. But the thing is I'm no longer in that place that I used to be in, where it was just so overwhelming with the flashbacks and the horrible stuff, tapes playing around and around, the abuser, um, and that's just not my life anymore. I am actually enjoying life. And like I said, everybody has a bad day now and then. I mean, we all have, pity parties here and there, right? Something doesn't go right or something's going really wrong. And then we're like, oh man. But that's normal life. Life isn't perfect. And so it's this roller coaster ride type thing. But like I said, my emotions and the way that I handle things in life now is just so much more on an even keel, So I'm prepared now. I've got the coping skills. I've got, things that I can use to help myself to cope. And like it's not perfect, but it is way better than it used to be, let me tell you. And so I'm pretty confident that, I can handle whatever comes. And, it's a good feeling to be on this side of it, like I said, but it took a long time. It took a lot of work. And, I wasn't really on my own doing it. I mean, I had some help from different people. I didn't go to a counselor or therapist or anything like that. I just didn't trust them. But I did a lot of group support and online group support, and also just reaching out to the survivor community. I met a lot of survivors who were then able to help, to make suggestions for me that were helpful, because they knew where I was coming from. They were like, well, this worked for me. You could try it. All sorts of things like that. I had a lot of help along the way from really cool people. So it's just a matter of making that decision, the best decision for yourself as a survivor of abuse. You need to make that decision for yourself, what you need, whether it's counseling, therapy, group support, just finding a good friend, finding a support system. But the best part of it is that when you're ready, you'll make that decision. If you haven't done anything on your healing journey, at some point, you know, hopefully you just won't suffer on your own and you'll actually reach out, right? It took me to the age of 41 to have a breakdown that was the lowest point that I'd ever been in my life. I mean, as an adult, right? And I was pretty sure I wasn't going to be able to come out of that one. That was the worst breakdown I'd ever had. And they call it a breakdown. I call it a breakdown, but in the survivor world, it's called a breakthrough, because if that wouldn't have happened, I would have just kept rolling, rolling along, right? So it's actually a breakthrough because it caused me to get help, right? I would hope that you don't have to go through that to get to the lowest point in your life before you start reaching out, because that's not a fun place to be, right? Um, it's not. It's not okay. It's not okay what we went through. It's not okay what happened to us. Abuse is not okay. It's not okay for people to abuse children in any way. I don't care if it's bullying or, you know, emotional, psychological abuse, or, what kind of abuse it is. CSA, child sexual abuse, physical abuse, I mean, spiritual abuse. It's all horrible. And no child should ever have to be abused. I mean, no child should ever be abused. There's no excuse for it. There isn't. A lot of times people will make excuses for their abuser because they love that person. That's what my siblings all did. They basically made excuses for my parents. But the thing is, my siblings would quite often, we'd be talking about some of the stuff that happened. We'd be like, oh man, it was really screwed up. And we'd agree that it was really bad. But then, you know, they had to see our parents, they couldn't see them as bad people, who did this horrible stuff to their children. So they justified it by, well, it's just where they came from. And, they were both abused as children too, trying to make excuses for them. And there's no excuse for abuse ever. There really isn't. There's no excuse for anybody to abuse a child. And my parents shouldn't have been abused. And then they shouldn't have abused us. But they made it their business to abuse us. And I mean, my mom would threaten to kill me, and she'd be like, "It's my right to kill you." And she's like beating me half to death. You know, I'm laying on the floor in a pool of blood, and my mom's like, "It's my right to kill you." And I'd be like, "No, kill me, mommy." And then when I got older, I was like, "Go ahead and kill me. I don't care, man. Just take me out. I'm dead anyway." You don't do that to a children. You don't do that to a child. You just don't. You don't do that. That's wrong. And for me to sit there and say, that what happened to me was okay, I'd have to be absolutely insane. You know what I'm saying? It was not okay. It's not okay that somebody raped me, my own sibling raped me. It's not okay. Now my other siblings don't care that my other sibling raped me. They don't care. I haven't had one of them come up to me and say, "Wow, man, I mean, that's harsh," right? I haven't had one of my siblings come, well, most of them are dead now. But while they were living, they knew that book was out there, and they knew. And not one of them has come to hug me and just say, "Can I sit with you? Can I just sit with you and comfort you?" And you don't even have to talk. We don't have to talk about it, like whatever. But I'm here for you. Not one of my siblings has done that for me. I was raped at 8 years old for almost a year by my brother, who was 21. Very mentally ill, heroin user, drug user. And, I was just an 8-year-old little girl who was being abused by her mother and her dad already, right? That never should have happened, you know? And that was incredibly wrong. And what I had to do was take that toxic shame and throw it out the door. Just throw it. I actually envisioned it on a necklace, all the stuff that they put on me, my abusers. I call them my abusers because I don't like linking that word with the name mom and dad and all this, because mom is supposed to be a wonderful word. Mothers are supposed to be wonderful, and dads are supposed to be there to help you and to be there for you and love you as a child, right? And even as an adult. And my parents were not moms and dads. They were monsters. And so I don't even call them my parents. I just call them my abusers, because that's what they were. I have no problem calling them my abusers, because that's exactly what they were. And they were my siblings' abusers too. And it's just sad what we all went through. And it's like, you know, it's like you sit back and you're like, wow. Within the family unit, nobody cared at all, or even the ones that's still alive, which is very few, um, care that my brother raped me when I was 8 years old. They don't care, and they don't care that it made me barren. You know, um, the damage from the CSA child sexual abuse caused me to be barren, so I couldn't have any children, and I lost my baby, so I wasn't able to ever get pregnant again. And you know, not one of those siblings of mine came up and it's not like they had to apologize. It wasn't their fault. But not one of them came up just to say, "Can I just sit with you? Can I just hold your hand? Can I just hug you?" Right? That's what I needed. That's what I needed. I needed somebody to care, and nobody cared. They just didn't care. And it's like, oh, I've got my bestie sister here. This is my sissy who is Donna Shear, and one of my very, very best friends in the whole world. Hi, doll. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Well, thank you. Well, I'm glad that you care because I know that you do. And you and Lee Roberts, Donna Shear, that's well, they founded Advocates United for Humanity. That's who I volunteer with. So, but we volunteered before with DTR, another not-for-profit years ago. But Donna Shear helped me write my book. She's been behind me the whole entire way, just going, "You can do this. You can do this." She's my sister. She's a bestie, my best friend, and I love you so much. Um, you've been here the whole way, all the way from way back when my book was actually a blog, just on a blog page, and you were like, "That needs to be published. Your story's worth it. You need to get it out there," and you didn't deserve that, right? So yeah, Donna Shear and Lee Roberts, both my sister. I call them my sisters because we're sisters in Christ Jesus. We're all Christians, and we call each other sisters, but we're best friends, and you know, we don't all three do anything for each other. But we've worked together over now for since 2008, pretty much 2009, 2008, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful ride. That you make life worth living. You bring me a lot of happiness. I'm so thankful for everything you've done. Donna Shears was my original publisher, and Lee Roberts was one of my original editors. So they're the ones that worked on my books, right? And they read my story and they knew all about it, and they were like, "Man, you didn't deserve that," right? And they've been there to sort of hold my hand the whole way and be like, "You can do this. You can do this." So yeah, I owe them a debt of gratitude I'll never be able to repay. And so, like I say, I just try to pay it forward because I can never pay it back, right? So I'm glad you could be here tonight, doll. But yeah, I just touching on a few very heavy duty stuff that so many survivors of abuse. There's nobody that will acknowledge the abuse and just how hard it was for them as children to grow up in that, and then as adults to have to face the reality of it and to try to heal. And it's been hard. It's been incredibly hard. And that's what I needed. I needed somebody to care. And Donna pops on right when I was talking about that. And Donna and Lee are a huge part of the reason why I made such progress on my healing journey, because they've always been here for me. And I mean, on the really tough days, writing some of those, especially one child abuse survivor to another, the journey. I know Donna Shear helped me get through that, just by being there for me, and Kate Mitchell did as well. There was a couple of people that were, I could talk to them if I was having a hard day. They'd call me and they'd be like, "How are you doing?" Because they knew I was writing that book and all about the CSA child sexual abuse. And they were like, "How are you doing? I hope if you need to talk, we're here," right? And I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel like, there's nobody here for me. So yeah, when I started my healing journey, things turned around. They really did. And that's why I encourage other people. I try to encourage survivors of abuse. When you're ready, you know, it's clearly your decision, and, you have to make the best choice for yourself. I think a person will know, when they're ready to do something like that. Because you'll know at that point that you need to choose what's best for you. Whether it's counselor, whether it's therapist, or group support, or whatever works for you. Right? We're all different. We all need different things, and so you'll hopefully eventually get there if you're just listening to this and you've never done any healing work on your, from your past wounding. And, you know, like I said, I'm in such a better place now than I ever was, because what I did learn how to do, using a program called My Envisioned Mind. It used to be called, Forget Talking Therapy. Then it was Your Envisioned Mind. Now I think it's My Envisioned Mind. They've changed the name quite a few times, but it doesn't matter. It's the same program. And this program is amazing. And what it did was it allowed me to go in and love my wounded children, and to get them to safety, and to, you know, basically just all of my woundedness. It allowed me to get in touch with it, all of this trauma that I suffered as a child. And then, because I'm the adult in the situation and nobody else could do this for them, it's just me. It's an inward meditation. But I went in and I was able to, be that, what they needed, which was somebody to care about them. My little 8-year old, my little, 7-year old, my 9-year old, my 10-year old, and on and on, who, at these points of wounding, right? Where there was no help, there was no love. So it's like, I have these wounded parts of myself where I really needed to get in touch with that and learn how to love myself. That was the biggest thing I could do in my healing journey, was to actually learn how to love myself. Stop the self-hatred, stop the self-sabotaging, start getting help with that stuff, and learning, how to spot what I'm doing. It's hard to spot something you've been doing all your life. And self-sabotage was a problem for me because I didn't recognize it. I didn't recognize a lot of stuff that I was doing. I just thought I was just living, and I'm like, okay, I keep ending up in the same position, which is horrible. So it's like, okay, what am I doing, right? And I had some people point some things out to me that I was doing, and they were like, "You're just running. That's all you're doing." Because I told them I was abused. I mean, I didn't used to go around telling people I was abused, but I actually had to tell this life coach that I was abused because I had a problem with my boss, and she was like, she was a career coach, life coach. She's like, you can keep running all you want, but or you can stand up for yourself and realize that you have rights, and that nobody has the right to abuse you. And you were abused as a child, and that never should have happened. I'm really sorry. She was a really nice lady, and she actually helped me to see some stuff that I was doing. And that's amazing, right? And like Donna said, learning to love yourself is hard sometimes, but it is a must in your healing journey. Yeah, absolutely. And it is a must, absolutely, because if we can't learn to love ourselves, how can we continue? How can we get any better? How can we feel any better about our lives and about what our life means today? We can't change the past, so we can't go back and change the past. But what can I do today to make things better? And one thing we can do is love ourselves, and really seriously love ourselves. Not kind of like, oh, okay, I love myself. It's not like that. It's like, no, I'm going to do the best thing I can do. I'm going to do the best job I can to take care of myself, to, and that's in every area: physical, physical health, emotional health, you know, mental health, like psychological health. Are my needs being met? Am I on drugs? Am I addicted to stuff? I need to get off of that, right? Or is it alcoholism, or whatever these issues are? That's loving yourself, you know, making better choices for ourselves. And I mean, that's something that I'm glad that I kind of have a good grasp on, except for I still have a nicotine addiction that I just don't want to let go of. And I'm like, okay, I could lose that. That would be much healthier, and I'd be able to save the money or do something else with the money instead of, you know. instead of this nicotine habit that I'm still doing. But that's my last one, and I'm still hanging on to it like, it's like a security blanket. And I'd like to lose it. I'd like to get rid of it. I want to finish off my days on the earth with zero addiction. I think that'd be a wonderful thing. And for somebody who was addicted, like as a young person, I've always had addiction problems. So just being good to ourselves, just, it's not walking around saying, I love myself all the time. That's not loving yourself. What I'm talking about, I think what everybody else is talking about, when we need to learn how to love ourselves, we need to learn how to be compassionate to ourselves. So yeah, when we're having a bad day, don't be hard on yourself. Don't beat yourself up, right? Coming from abuse, right? We've already been abused. And then what, we're going to go ahead and and beat ourselves up, emotionally, sort of thing, because something's not going well. That just adds layer upon layer of, more abuse. We're just doing it to ourselves now instead of somebody else, right? That's no good, you know? So I think it's just learning how to, say, hey, I do matter. I do count, you know, and I do deserve to get my needs met just like everybody else, right? And, when you realize that, you start to realize, like, hey, that's absolutely true. I'm just as good as the next person. I mean, I'm not any better than the next person, but I'm just as good, and um, I'm just as equal in that I have the right to get my needs met, just like they do, right? Absolutely. And abuse survivors normally have a hard time with that. And it's because as children, our needs were not met. And grow, if you're abused as a child or neglected or whatever the situation was, your needs were not met, and your needs were not important. And so that's the issue about abuse, right? And then you grow up and you're like, oh, my needs don't matter. It doesn't matter. And then it just becomes this cyclical thing through life, saying, oh, I don't matter, I don't count, and then we're then just doing this stuff to ourselves. So that's not good. We need to realize that we do have the right to a good life, just like everybody else. Do have the right to pursue a good life. We have the right to not be abused. I mean, that's obvious. We have the right to take care of ourselves. It is our duty. It's really important to take care of ourselves. But if you weren't shown how to do that as a child, you need to learn how to do that. That's what I'm doing. I'm learning, how to do these things. It's taken me, like I said, a long time. I'm, I'm over, I've already cruised past my mid 50s. So, it took me a long time. I would hope it wouldn't take you that long if you're listening to this and you're a survivor of abuse. And but it just takes as long as it takes, and you have to start at some point, some place. So I'm thankful, like I said, I'm really thankful, that I made the decision um, to not hold it in and just keep suffering along and actually get help. Right? It was the best thing I ever did. I'm serious. And I mean, sure, I don't care how long it's taken me to get to this point, 14 years or whatever. It doesn't matter. Because the issue is that I started, things got so much better, and I'm like, wow, I do care. I do love myself. I do love life, and I'm actually enjoying life. And I've met some wonderful people, and I've got like Donna Shear here with me tonight, my sister. That's awesome, my bestie. And that's I've met some wonderful people and done some wonderful things that I would never have done if I wouldn't have started my healing journey. So that's why I just like to encourage people. Um, you don't have to be alone, like I said, if you don't want to be. So many people are isolated, and some people are loners and they just like to be alone, and that's fine. You know what I mean? But if you're one of these people that just craves a relationship and really wants to have a good friend and just, wants to know that there's somebody that they can pick up the phone, when they're having a hard day, and they're just like, man, I wish I just had somebody to call. This is awful, right? That's where I was. And I'm telling you, somebody who would understand where you're coming from. And there are people out there and they do understand. And it's up to you to pick up the phone and make that phone call, right? And you'd be surprised how many people actually do care. When you start reaching out, it's amazing how many people really do care. So you don't have to do this alone if you don't want to. That's what I'm saying. And there's a lot of good help out there. And like, if I can help you find resources, let me know. Advocates United for Humanity, that's who I volunteer with. And that's AU4H Weebly.com, I think. Isn't that right, Donna? I hope you're still there. I always draw a blank. It's terrible. But anyway, if you just type in your browser, Advocates United for Humanity or AU4H Radio, any of these things that that are our sites. Okay, oh, good. We have resources listed on our website. So you just go and click on the links up on the right corner, up in the top there, and it'll come down. There's all sorts of resources and links. If you can't find information, and you've looked and you don't know how to go about finding some information, you can contact anybody at Advocates United for Humanity. That's our not-for-profit. That's Donna Shear, Lee Roberts, and the other volunteers, and they'll help you. They'll help you. And you can contact me on my page here. You know what I mean? That's I'm doing this because I care about people. It's not just so I can want to talk and whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I really do care. I mean, I used to like run the ASCA group and the SIA group, Survivors of Incest Anonymous, and I did that for a while. Then my husband was very sick and he passed away, and I really felt it was just too much at the time. I had to take a break. Then I tried to get it going again, and I really couldn't get any interest in my group, so I let it go again. But the thing is like, you know, if I can help you find information, like, or anybody at, like I said, Don Shear, anybody at Advocates United for Humanity, we'd be glad to help you find information or find resources in your area. So like I'm saying, if you don't know, can't seem to find info or help, get a hold of us, right? Because that's what we do. We're not for profit. We do care. And, most of us are survivors and have been through a lot. We know what it is like to struggle. And yeah, like Donna says, we really do care, and we really do. And we try to help people all over North America, and I mean, wherever we can, right? So not just Canada, all over the states and Canada. So it's kind of like, if we can help you, let us know, and we'll try our best to help you find some resources. And yeah, we know what it is to struggle. We know what it's like, and it's hard. And it's just nice to know that there are people out there that are doing this work because they actually care. It's not about money, and it's not about anything other than the fact that we just care, and we just want, like Donna said, we just want to help people. So I'm so glad you could be here with me, Donna. That's so awesome. Oh, that's nice. You made my night. And I'm glad to be able to do these shows again. We're gonna, pick up sort of like topical information is what I'll be talking about. Tonight we were looking at toxic shame. We might continue on in some of that because it's deep. It's a deep subject, and toxic shame. And we'll probably next Friday we'll take another look at it. And next Wednesday I'll be back at noon doing the midweek survivor check-in. That's usually just a half-hour show. I'm usually just checking in with people and see how you're doing. And I've got a whole lot of other biblical stuff that I'm doing too here, so you can check my broadcast schedule, and I'll be posting all the times and stuff like that there. So thanks everybody, I appreciate it. And I think I'll go ahead and finish this show off tonight a little bit earlier than I normally would. But thanks for being here. Like I said, if you can't cope, and I say this on every show, on all my stuff that I do, it's so important for me to say this to you. If you're listening to this and you seriously can't cope, do not give up. Make a phone call, call somebody, call a crisis line, but you make a call and you get some help. And you do not be destroyed by your past. You do not be destroyed by what somebody did to you. No, that's what I was going to do. I was going to let my abusers win this fight. And I'm like, no, no. I got busy and I got help. And I'm like, I win. I make a call. That's what Donna says. Donna says, Never give up. Make a call and get help. You are bigger than your past. That's right. That's right. And what happened to us as children being abused or people being abused never should have happened. But nothing changes until we reach out and get some help, right? And and Donna says every day you live is a slap in your abuser's face. That's right. That's what I always say. Because I'm like every day I wake up, it's a slap in my abuser's face. It really is. Because they couldn't destroy me and they couldn't get me to destroy myself. They almost did. And that's why I'm saying it's such a slap in their face that I'm still here. They're in the ground. I'm here. I'm having a good life. I actually love myself. I care about myself. I care about other people. I'm enjoying life. And it's such a burn on them for doing what they did to me to try to destroy me. And they couldn't do it. So I win this fight. I win. And, that's what I want you to do too. That's why I always say that on my shows, because it drives me up the wall and crazy to think about so many people who allow their abusers to win the fight. That is not okay, man. It's just not. We win. That's right. They couldn't destroy you or kill you. You're still here. That's exactly right. I'm still here. And not just suffering. Everybody, life is hard, right? So we all have our struggles and trials and troubles. And from the abuse, even, physical stuff and, whatever. The issue is I'm still here. I'm still fighting. And I won. Because I'm actually enjoying life. And that's the burn, right? They couldn't they couldn't ruin my life, which is what they tried to do. So this is the thing. I want that for you. I want that for all survivors of abuse. I really do. And so many times it doesn't go that way. And I don't want that to be you. I would, that's why I say it on every show. Reach out, get some help. Don't struggle on your own. Contact somebody, even anonymously, whatever. But just know that you're not alone. Seriously. And it never should have happened. And you deserve so much better. Take care, everybody, till the next show. I wish you a really good night. It's Friday night. Be safe in what you're doing. Take good care of yourself. Have a good weekend. Thank you, Donna, for being here with me tonight. I really appreciate it. I know it's late on your end, way over there in the northeast corner of the state, and you're quite a couple hours, later than it is right now for me. I'm in Calgary, so it's a little bit earlier. And wish you all a good night. Like I said, take care of yourselves. Have a good weekend. And I'll catch y'all tomorrow or the next, if you want to come back and catch this next Friday night, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Take care, everybody. Till next time.